ABC News special, the most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris.
Together, we will
they hyped this shit up so hard.
Way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
She's going in for a handshake.
Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Oh!
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing. And the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year, because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places they've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris.
No, that's so bad, dude.
So
you got a lot
Donald
of
Trump
jobs.
has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America.
God. Okay, Joe
What
Biden.
Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the
Goldman
Wharton School
Sachs?
has said is Donald Trump's plan
You're a Democrat.
would
What the fuck's
actually
wrong with you?
explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to
He's
go
already
and work,
cutting in.
Create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports
they're
across
helping
the board.
Kamala.
You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there.
No, the moderators already said it's a
under
sales
their
tax.
administration.
It's great framing.
We are going to take
on
in
tariffs.
billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having, on the short end of the stick, in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
Oh my God, she's like, I can be more of a China hawk than you.
Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short.
So far,
and you
very
said,
good
quote,
for Kamala, very bad for Trump.
We need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade. As President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again.
Trump
it's a
is
lie.
so fucked.
I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. And they wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible.
Definitely outperforming my expectations.
The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national
I'm not
abortion
in favor
ban?
of an
Well, I
abortion
won't
ban.
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll
After
go back
taking
to Congress.
ownership
She'll
over
never
it.
get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans?
This will have down-ballot
and
consequences.
It ended up being a total catastrophe.
Trump is literally
The student
pointing to
loans,
gridlock and deliberate
I think
deliberate
probably her
obstructionism.
boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out
All
and
she
said,
needs to do
we'll
in
do
this
it
situation
again.
is be
We'll do
like,
it a
yeah, that's
different
why
way.
we need
He
to
went out,
fucking
got
vote for
rejected
Democrats
again
down
by
ballot.
the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. in all fairness. J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Keep
another lie.
talking about abortion.
I have been a leader on
talking
IVF,
about abortion.
which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF.
Guys,
and the other thing,
reminder. This is like if Kamala said, I'm a leader on the border.
Will she allow abortion
Remember
in the 8th
that
month,
for when
9th
immigration
month,
comes
7th
up.
month?
No one believes you.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the
Just
governor,
say there is
former
no
governor
fucking-
of Virginia.
There's no
the
state in
governor
America
of Virginia
where you
said
can
we
get a
put
third
the baby
trimester
aside
abortion
and then we determine
unless
what
it's a
we
medical
want to do with the
necessity.
baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn
You
now
can
to
never get a
immigration
third
and border
trimester
security.
abortion
We
for
know it's an
fun.
issue that's
It has to
important
be a medical
Republicans,
necessity.
Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just
I don't want to come across
why
like I'm
did you try
glazing,
to
but that
kill
was
that bill, and
bars.
successfully so. That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers
She
on the board.
ulted.
First, let me respond.
She called him a narcissist and
She said
also
people
separated
start
him
leaving.
from
People don't
her
go to
fan
rallies.
base.
There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase. Make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this,
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
He's debating the money!
Again, Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation
don't help him, David
proposal
Muir.
that the Vice President has reacted to as well.
You fucking ass.
President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher.
The HasanAbi
Take us through
question.
this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah. It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you.
He's not
you know
answering
the crime in Venezuela and crime in countries
He's
all
not
over the
answering
world is way down. You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof.
Crime is down.
Despite
They're
their
gonna fact check
fraudulent
that,
statements
for sure.
that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
Bullshit.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for
hit him on
sexual
immigration.
assault.
Stop hitting
and his
him.
next big court
Hit him on
appearance is in
policy.
November at his
Stop.
own
You did
criminal
enough direct
sentencing.
attacks. Hit him on policies.
And
Hit
let's
them on
be
the crime
clear.
shit.
Where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York.
Oh, my God,
and the DA
this is
in New
so
York.
good. Loser
Every
shit.
one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
to stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking, because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history.
Drill, baby, drill.
Because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil.
And she made a single
As
point
it
that
relates
isn't
to my
preaching to the
values,
mythical
let me tell you,
conservative
I
undecided
grew up
voter.
a middle-class kid raised by a hard-working
abortion.
mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your response?
First of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please.
Does that sound familiar? Talking.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment
to.
that she
We're out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer.
The other side? You mean Congress members?
Never shot her. It's a disgrace.
Not even a single. Mike
But
Pence wasn't even hanged.
This group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle.
More people were prosecuted during the BLM protest than
But let me just
January 6th. More people have been prosecuted during the Palestine protests than January 6th.
It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business.
What?
That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do.
Hey guys,
and
remember when I
said
said neo-Nazis are very fine
We
people?
would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these
Just
pieces of
say
video.
something
I
about
didn't
the
detect the
fucking
sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We
immigration,
didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread
standing.
fraud.
That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just tell you about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men. They call him a strong man. He's a tough person.
Americans love Viktor
Smart.
Orban.
Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country. He ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held.
Here we go.
Americans
Israel
among
dick
them.
riding.
Vice President
Get
Harris,
ready.
in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis.
She's losing Michigan.
Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately. And the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
Fucking lines, dude.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one.
Yes!
She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population.
I'm voting for Kamala
because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel. Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror. Horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation. And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. this would have never happened. I will get that settled and
he fucked
fast,
up the
and I'll get
peaceful
the
dove
war
line, though.
with Ukraine and Russia ended.
I think he tried
if
to
I'm
angle it.
president-elect, I'll get
He
it
tried
done
to angle it as like he's the
before
peaceful
even
candidate. He
becoming
fucked it up.
president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli
Kamala,
people.
you fucking
He knows
idiot.
that. He's
Shut
trying
up.
to
Read
again
the room.
divide and
Read the
distract
fucking room,
from the
dumbass.
reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known
God, she's
that he
so bad.
admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the
Holy
National Constitution
fuck.
Center right here in Philadelphia. Back.
God damn, what a fucking journey we went on. Yo, ettingermentum, you can unmute. Okay. What an insane, what an absolutely fucking insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she didn't bring up that he has the morals of an alley cat. She's fucking throwing. This is
I know.
Like,
She
ridiculous.
also, did you notice that she didn't say we beat Medicare, which was
No.
weird because that was a powerful
No,
bar when Joe Biden deployed that one. Or
not bring up the immigrant deaths during the abortion question. Classic mistake. I don't know
Yeah.
what she was thinking.
yeah, I found that very odd. So, okay, right off the jump, really fucking strong start. I will.
Yeah.
She outperformed my expectations by wide margins. Okay,
Yeah,
there was a lot of.
I was really blown away in the abortion thing. That was legitimately really impressive.
Yeah, no, she did a fucking fantastic. Like, she was not doing the classic like Mamala, coconut tree Harris shit at all. Straight
She
to the
hasn't
point.
laughed. She's hardly laughed at all.
She laughed one time. There was a couple moments. I am unimaginably frustrated with the immigration stuff for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I think that is like, that's really bad to just leave on the table in general, because Trump is just like getting increasingly insane on this issue. At least point it out. Like, the least
There's
you
so
can
much
do.
He's been groipified.
Yeah.
Like
He's so fucking groiped up. Like, the way he's talking about fucking the Haitians eating cats. Like, I can't believe he just straight up said that.
Did you see the Eric Erickson thing where he was freaking out? Like, congratulations on getting the shit on national TV, you fucking morons.
Yeah, it is unimaginable. But like, honestly, again, it is up to Kamala Harris at that moment. Like, you can't rely on David Muir's sexy ass every time to fucking offer you a goddamn lifeline every single moment that the debate is occurring. You know what I mean? And he did.
Yeah.
His sexy ass was out there being hot and also doing a lot more fact checking than I thought it was going to happen.
Yeah,
But
I've actually really liked them. I've been like pleasantly surprised. Bringing up the number of Palestinians who have been killed. Like, I didn't expect that. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, it was shocking. Jake Tapper would never. Okay, Jake Tapper would be like what, 10 Palestinians that maybe died and they deserved it. That's what he would say.
Yeah, they killed
Dana
themselves actually.
Yeah, Dana Bash would be hitting both of them on not being sufficiently pro-Israel. So that is actually shocking. Like the decent amount of moderation that's occurring here. But yeah, the Israel dick riding portion was fucking awful. It was disastrous. It was expected. And I think that it will, in my opinion, it will have electoral consequences. I don't know how you feel about that. We could talk about that after the fact.
I think that like it's just a larger thing that like with her team's fucked up mindset because she's kept all the Biden people. They just feel like for some reason they can't ever meaningfully break from Biden. I feel like the ingredients were here for her to have a bad performance. Like a lot of her lines are canned. A lot of the like bait on Trump looks kind of corny and like a non sequitur if he doesn't respond to it.
Yeah.
But
and
like
he
is
he ate it. He ate it every time. Even the Charlottesville one. Like she would do throwaways, bro. She would just like kind of drop random ones in there and he would be like, "Nope, I remember that and I'm going to address it." Which is shocking. Like it is worse than I thought. And I think like the failure point, like he was already shitty even against Joe Biden if you know, if you recall. But like Joe Biden obviously was cratering so hard that nobody even paid attention to how bad Trump was. Having said that, like you really saw it from the jump. But it absolutely fell apart after the crowd size shit. Like people are leaving your campaigns, I think was like the pivotal moment of the debate. Because
he's been seething. He's been seething.
Yeah, he hasn't stopped chirping since then. And I think like a lot of Americans just care about optics overall. And if you were like will this motivate more people to go out and vote for Kamala Harris? I don't know, because like there isn't a lot of like policies past the opening monologue. But overall, I mean, she absolutely looks way more professional. Like she is reminding people how fucking narcissistic Donald Trump is and showing like what a normal president would look like in a way that even Joe Biden wasn't able to do after 2020. So
it's it's just like I mean I'm like trying to keep track of like the pulse like with like just like searching stuff on Twitter. If you search Celtic Shaq, everybody's saying that he looks like Celtic Shaq. They're saying he's an insult to Celtic Shaq. Oh, there it is, back.
Yeah.
Let's see if he can clutch this out.
I think it's over.
Debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight.
Another HasanAbi line.
Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion.
I hate to do this,
more,
but also the ad break is coming right now. I'm sorry.
They don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe, like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Others did. We brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I wanted to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century.
67.
But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American
that wasn't a bad
diplomacy,
idea.
where we invite
Sorry.
and receive.
And that's why Joe Biden
respected
followed along with it.
leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate
The fuck? What are you
the
going to do? Not
role
bring the
and
Palestinians to Camp David?
responsibility
Freak.
of the president of the United States to
This point
be
is stupid.
commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and
If Trump
demeaned
was smart, he'd be
members
like,
of our military,
"That's how you do
fallen
deals."
soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo.
18 months. I mean,
It was a very good
Abdul,
agreement.
his house
The
was a
reason
prison,
it
dog.
was
He was
good,
in prison. You
it
took him
was-
out of prison.
We were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers.
You literally
we wouldn't
took
have
him
left
out of prison.
many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have
What
left.
is going
We
on?
wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal and, in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
That's bad.
I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then
Why
I
are
read
you-
that she was
That's
black.
so bad.
And that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times
State landlord.
calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said, going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had. A horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsay.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
She has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's
you, Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
No,
because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump,
president has said
no, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to respond
No,
to.
I'm sorry. We're
I
going
just need
to move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he
President
has said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better.
Correct.
Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive.
Oh,
and
this
there are
is so
concepts
bad.
and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we, over the last 4 years, have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed, for the first time, Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding
this is where she could pop off
the value
way harder,
I bring to
on the
this
policy front.
is that
This is where
access to
she
health
gets
care
undecided,
should
like
be
people
a right,
who are on the
and
couch
not
to
just
come
a
out and vote
privilege
for
of
her.
those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice
Past his
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
She made
of...
a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But
He's going to come out for Medicare for all.
Private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up, You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as Vice President over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we
can't come into our country because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries.
Dude,
And then you wonder, why
every
is he so
fucking
loyal
Trump
to
take
this
is a
one, that one,
conspiracy,
Ukraine, China?
unfounded.
Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did he get?
This
why did she
motherfucker is
pay him
supposed to be talking about
$3.5
climate right
million?
now.
This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An
Oh
historic
my
night, this
God,
ABC News presidential
bro.
debate from Philadelphia. Back.
What the fuck? Okay, that shit was hella boring. The second half was so boring. The first one was like, the first half was like way more powerful than the second half. I'm not gonna lie. They front loaded that shit pretty hard, and they kept the Israel stuff to the end too. But honestly, not great. Okay, not great overall. Second half was definitely weaker. Trump is just still continuing to devolve. Every conversation just like goes on a tangent. I think there was some moments where Kamala Harris was also flubbing a little bit. What do you think?
She didn't try to bait him at all in the second half, which I thought was kind of weird. Like that went like kind of like weirdly smoothly. He sounded terrible. I think that like right now, like the poly market, like odds for like who wanted the debate is like 95% for Kamala, which like I think will be true. They usually have like the intra, like the one big thing that I was like really kind of shocked by, that I was surprised that she didn't really hit him on. He got baited on the fucking Central Park 5. He said they were guilty. Like,
yeah.
God, yeah, that was one thing he got baited on, I guess. Like, oh, it's not over yet. Somebody said it's over, but it's not. It's still,
no. There's the final monologue that they're gonna do their final closing statements, which I suspect is gonna be exactly the same shit that they've said. For better or for worse, both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are just like kind of going and doing exactly what they've been doing. Like, her Israel stuff was just like obviously dog shit. I think that there was my analysis on this, and I've been saying this for quite some time now, is that on the issue of like not the Afghan withdrawal necessarily, that was a powerful moment for Kamala Harris, like actually standing on that. Even though she flubbed the first half. I will say, like, I think Donald Trump presented himself as a peaceful dove against Hillary Clinton in 2016, and a lot of voters responded positively to that. Obviously, Clinton had a lot of additional baggage on top of everything else, but he was not even able to do that this time around. I think that could have been 3 points that he could have hammered. He could have been more moderate on immigration. He could have been more moderate, like a little bit, like dialed it back and didn't do like conspiracies and stuff. And I think that would have been more appealing to like a broader audience. But he went way too hard on immigration. I think that's going to backfire on him. He went way too hard on, like, he kept doing this. He kept doing this thing. Like, he even did it on abortion, where he would just like obviously lie and would like in an opportunity where like he could technically jam up Kamala Harris and be like, oh, well, do you want third trimester abortions? Like, what point would you ever restrict abortion if you would? Like, that kind of question would be. I
support Roe. That's like that's the line. They don't ever like say, oh, Roe means you have this sort of type of restriction.
Yeah.
So that maybe kind of doesn't.
But because he was lying about like post-birth abortions and shit, that like he wouldn't even be able to hit like a good line of attack on Kamala Harris on that front. And I think that that similar attitude presented itself even when he was talking about like, you know, Russia and Israel Palestine. Like in a lot of moments where he didn't really talk about Israel Palestine, like throughout this entire process, throughout the past 11 months, whenever he did, he presented himself as like the guy who's going to end it, right? The guy who's going to end it all. And I think at this point he should have probably had like some way of ending it. Like he could say something beyond like, nah, I'm just going to end it.
Yeah, that would have worked in 2016, I think, when like the whole concept was like, oh, I'm like this person, I can get shit done. I'm like this competent like outsider. That was like a really big underrated part of his appeal, I think, and that shine has gone off after he's already been president. Like when he has to like kind of say like, oh, half of my administration was morons, but like I'm gonna do it better this time. And also like I don't talk with JD Vance about anything. It's just it's the Celtics Shaq phenomenon. He's Celtics Trump.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is like he fucked up on 3 strong suits that he could hammer Kamala Harris on. By going too hard on immigration, he fucked up on that front. And I think like he lied far too much, which kind of cooked him a little bit. I think he also fucked up on
fact checkers. They're mauling about ABC.
Everyone is going to maul about ABC. The debate is coming back, but I think that it was good that they actually did moderate the debate. You shouldn't be able to get away with lying that much on national television on a presidential debate. So fuck everybody.
Statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight 2 very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us, and we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years.
Bro, this is your opening statement. What are you doing? I mean, closing statement.
They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question.
This is reverse 2016 in some ways.
Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me.
Viktor Orban
They
is
call
laughing
me.
at us.
We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President
That's your
Trump,
closing
thank
statement?
You. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution
Bruh.
Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching
That
here
was
in the U.S. and all over the
ass.
world, and from all of us here at ABC News.
That was ass. That was so bad, bro. That's crazy. Wait, hold on. What do we got here?
ABC with our post.
Okay, nothing else. Okay. All right. What are your final thoughts, ettingermentum?
Yeah, well, this is like I can't stop thinking about I have the concept of a plan. I don't think that she necessarily like did what I felt like she needed to do, which is like really defining who she is beyond kind of like platitudes and sort of just like general kind of concepts and also just rampant hawkery. But I think like I don't think for the people out there who are like really like concerned about who she is and why they should vote for her against Trump, I don't know if she really accomplished that, just like I didn't feel like the DNC accomplished that. I do think Trump reminded a lot of people why they want to like her, because it's worth considering that she's like gotten back into a lead entirely off of people wanting like a Democrat to vote for against Trump. And people don't necessarily see Trump as much. He's on Truth Social all the time. He's a bit kind of quarantined in his own little kind of world where like shit like the people eating the pets makes sense. But like this is one of the rare opportunities where they see him, and he reminded people not just why they don't like him, or they're fucking terrified of him. Like the idea of somebody being like this being president is like it's always been scary.
Yeah. So, couple things. One, we have some undecided voters immediately that were being focus grouped, and under 30 from Michigan, Jonah says, I don't know what he's talking about in terms of his false claims that immigrants are eating pets in Springfield, Ohio. So that's cool. Brilliant move from Donald Trump being extremely online and flubbing that big time. One thing I will say is this. I think you and I will both agree that the American population has already made up their minds on Donald Trump. Maybe he can eke out tweak the margins a little bit with like young men, conspiratorial minded people that don't actually show up on polls, right? Like he's had the capacity to do this before. He's done it twice, as a matter of fact. He's done it. He's done it twice where he's like brought forward people that normally are not necessarily polled well, right? Like people that normally don't go out and vote.
To an extent, there are some explanations for why the polls were off in 2016 and 2020 beyond just like that factor. In 2016, the pollsters didn't weight by education, which was why they got it off really poorly. And in 2020, you had a situation with COVID lockdowns where liberals were staying at home and were always answering their phones, so they were disproportionately represented in polling. So neither of those things will be the case in 2024. The polling was accurate 2 years ago. I don't think it's guaranteed that he will overperform the polls, but his team seems to be banking on it, and I don't think that's really wise.
Yeah. So here's a couple things I want to say about this, right? I'm not saying this is a success method.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this is like a successful method for Trump. I'm saying that this is what he's going after, in my opinion. I think that that's like with the RFK endorsement, Tulsi Gabbard, like he's trying to carve out like what remains in the demographics that might not have like a solid opinion on a dude who was president for 4 fucking years, right? And it's already, it's going to be hard, especially because he wasn't just the president. He was a hyper telegenic president. There was a lot of opinions on in either direction, right? So it seems like, my point is, it seems as though Donald Trump, I mean, and I think this is reflected in the polls, like he's locked in, like his audience is locked in, his voters are locked in. So he might stand to win here and there a couple people in the margins. He might stand to lose a couple people potentially. That's less likely in my opinion, because if they're committed to Donald Trump at this point with maxed out name recognition, then they're probably invested and they're probably committed. It seems to me like Kamala Harris was looking to, like you said, show who she is to a broader audience of voters who might have voted for Joe Biden or might have historically voted for the Democratic Party or is going to vote for the first time ever, but aren't necessarily enthusiastic about going out and voting for Kamala Harris. And on that front, I think she absolutely showed herself as like a reasonable adult, what like the Biden team thought Biden would be able to do, and he obviously failed to do so because his brain was leaking out of his ear. But in terms of like activating a lot of those people, I think you have to meet them where they're at, recognize their material conditions, recognize the problems that they're experiencing, and offer them like a decisive policy prescription, a solution to their problems. And I think personally, she didn't do that much.
No,
there
I
were
don't
moments.
think so either.
Yeah, there were a lot of moments, I think, where she could have done that, especially when they were talking about fucking healthcare. Like, that's such a gimme. Trump is literally chirping. Trump is chirping about how Kamala Harris wants to give everyone healthcare. Like, that's
concepts of a plan.
And she's just sitting there, like, shaking her head furiously, like, no, I don't want Medicare for all, I promise.
I don't want to support the thing with 60% approval.
And it's like, you're so fucking stupid. This is like another Israel-style situation where she is directly at odds with the fucking broader electorate, okay?
Yeah.
Like, directly at odds. Like, remove your head from your fucking ass. Okay, Waltz is on ABC. All right, people want me to hear what Waltz had to say. Let's tune in to see what he has to say.
Certainly, and you couldn't get any different than this. The reinstitution of Roe versus Wade, what was the law of the land for 52 years. You saw this in there, and him pushing back to the states. She's exactly right. It's people like Amanda in Texas, which everybody saw on the stage in Chicago, nearly bleeding out, having sepsis twice because she can't get the care. She's been absolutely clear on this. Everything Donald Trump said, that is untrue. The clarity of this is Roe. When you have Roe, you have the protections in place where women make their own decisions with their health care providers, not Donald Trump.
Okay, thanks so very much for joining us, Governor Waltz. John?
And we have the other side of the ticket. We have Senator J.D. Vance.
Oh,
Donald
shit,
Trump's
we got to see this one.
Joining us now. Senator Vance, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
So I want to get to one part in the debate where you came up. Donald Trump was asked if he would veto a national abortion ban.
So ruthless
he
to
didn't
him.
answer the question, suggested
He deserves it.
I guess that he wouldn't. And then it was pointed out that you, in fact, said not that long ago that he would veto a national abortion ban. Can you explain the mix-up here?
Well, I think the president's been very clear that he doesn't want a national abortion ban. I think in some ways he finds the question a little bit ridiculous because why are we asking him about legislation that's never going to actually happen and why he would veto it or not veto it when he says very explicitly that he doesn't support a national abortion ban and he wants these policies to be made by the states. But I think there's a deeper and more important issue here in this debate, which is that you had Kamala Harris effectively echoing platitude after platitude after platitude. The American people can't pay their grocery bills on platitudes. They can't put their kids in a house on platitudes. And Kamala Harris had a lot to say, but very little actual substance behind it for how she's going to lower grocery prices, secure the border, and make housing more affordable in this country. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She can't run on a record, and she apparently can't run on much of her plans either because it's just a lot of slogans and not a whole lot of substance.
But Senator Vance, why won't he just say that he would veto the national abortion ban? And by the way, had you spoken to him about it before you were put in a position to answer that question?
No, I hadn't spoken to him about it because, again, Donald Trump thinks the question is absurd because he doesn't support a national abortion ban, and he's been explicit about it. And, John, I think that it's so preposterous for the media to focus so much on an issue where Donald Trump has been crystal clear and not on the fact that people can't afford groceries and housing because of Kamala Harris's policies. This election is actually quite simple, and Kamala Harris and apparently the media would like to distract Americans on issues, by the way, that Donald Trump's been crystal clear about,
like
but they're
Haitians
not
eating
talking
cats
nearly
in
enough.
Springfield,
This debate
Ohio.
Didn't talk nearly enough about the fact that Americans are struggling because they can't afford groceries, they can't afford
Trump
housing.
didn't, you
and a
fucking
lot of their
idiot.
kids are dying of
Trump
fentanyl
didn't do that,
overdoses
you
because
fucking
Kamala Harris has
dumbass.
let the
You
Mexican drug
fucking
cartels
loser.
take over the southern
You
border.
goddamn
This
nerd.
is a disgrace what's going on in our country, John, and we could do so much better if we just had better leadership. We've got the best workers, the most beautiful country, the best natural resources, but Kamala Harris's leadership is squandering the great benefits of this country. It's why we've got to get back to Donald Trump's leadership.
Senator, by the way, I asked because he hadn't been crystal clear and he said something different than what you said. That's why I was seeking clarification. But let me ask you about this for just very quickly. I heard Donald Trump before this debate describe Kamala Harris as, I'll just read a few of them, a low IQ individual, somebody who doesn't have the mental capacity to be president, really dumb, unable to put two sentences together. Is that what you saw on the stage tonight?
John, what I saw was a lot of slogans. I think the American people are smart, and Kamala Harris talks to them like they're children. She repeats these ridiculous platitudes where if you actually think about what she said, you realize that it doesn't make any sense. She talks a lot about her plans, but then her plans, when you analyze the substance, don't make any sense. And more importantly, John, the American people don't get fed on plans. She has been the vice president for 3.5 years. What she can't do, refuses to do, and has no ability to do is to say, I accomplished lower prices because she didn't, or I accomplished lower housing prices because she didn't, or I secured the southern border because she didn't do that. She has failed as vice president, and the fundamental question is, do we want to give her a promotion? I think the answer has to be no, John.
All right, Senator Vance, thank you for joining us. Mary.
One thing both sides can agree on, this was a consequential night in this race. More reaction when we come back. Stay with us.
I said, if the goal for tonight was to simply demonstrate for the Harris campaign, was to simply demonstrate competency and remind people how narcissistic and incompetent Trump is. She put up LeBron numbers, but the goal tonight was to also get voters enthusiastic about voting for Harris. On that front, progressive policies would help. I said 8.5 out of 10. That's my assessment of Kamala Harris. As far as Trump's performance, it's like -10 out of 10.
It wasn't as bad as Biden, but it was like in the same area code. It was like in that ballpark.
It was like, yeah, I mean, Biden is like historic. That's like once in a lifetime failure, right? I mean, he had to drop out. That's how bad it was. But I cannot, he ate every bait. He was extremely online. He was disheveled. He literally leaned into like all of the worst instincts, like all of the worst things that people point to him about. And he even leaned into like all the issues that he should be avoiding, that cost him the midterms, even like cost the Republican Party the midterms, like loser shit. Bro, he said at one point, nobody on the other side even died on January 6th. The other side was your Congress. Okay?
Yeah, and the cops.
And Mike Pence and cops, Capitol Police. Like, what the fuck are you saying? It's like, the only Ashley Babbitt died. Nobody on the other side even died. It's like that's crazy, man. That's an insane thing to say. Like, I often talk about how silly it is, like how much hyper focus like liberals put on January 6th. And that's, I think, part of the reason why it's like reflected well in the polling. Like, Trump is a threat to democracy. Why? Because that's the key thing that Democrats can't shut the fuck up about, right? So obviously it's going to be reflected in the polls to a certain degree. I wish they would have that same energy for immigration in terms of counter messaging, but they don't because they're fucking stupid. Anyway, but ultimately Trump just keeps bringing back. It would be like if Kamala Harris did the Joe Biden thing, regularly bringing up how, like, I don't know, undocumented migrants are like doing rapes or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's akin to that.
Shit. Yeah. The healthcare stuff I was going to say before we cut to the Walls and Vance stuff. Like it's always kind of frustrating me because like during the like in the moderators did a better point of bringing this up than like honestly Kamala did. During the Trump era, during his presidency, he reached his lowest points in like approval over his tax bills and over Obamacare. Those were really, really unpopular. Obamacare is like broadly like a consensus kind of bill.
Yeah.
Like Obama himself is very popular. I mean, I get like kind of the like saying, oh, we're going to expand and protect the Affordable Care Act, but like it's like the exact opposite of how they push on immigration, where like they're totally defensive and reactive about it. You could make healthcare into a big issue this election. That would be really helpful for you. Like you could like push like it. You could like talk about how Trump has concepts of a plan or whatever, and how like you want to do a public option. You could force this and make like the issue better on your terms. Don't make it just the thing that's about like the immigration and the economy. Make this like be assertive, like change it like to be about what you want it to be about. But like they just have a fundamentally reactive and like reactionary like perspective towards it that doesn't like work. Like it's just like very passive.
Yeah, I genuinely cannot comprehend how he like failed to be normal on immigration, a strong suit, and like didn't even talk about didn't even talk about the economy. Like he rarely talked about the economy in that entire. The whole point of Trump was to be moderate, right? Like was to seemingly look normal, more normal than you've ever seen him before. That's what his like advisors keep fucking telling him, and they're like, "Don't attack Kamala Harris on race and stuff. Like, just be a little bit more normal." You know what I mean? Be a little bit more normal. Maybe you can pick up some fucking voters on the sidelines. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are angry about the economy. Like you're beating Biden on the economy. You're beating Kamala Harris on the economy. And it's crazy that like he just could not take a fucking deep breath and just be a goddamn adult. And he just he insisted on eating every fucking bait possible. Incredible.
Yeah, it's the worst time for him because the momentum was kind of shifting in his favor. You had the discussion and the polling moving towards more being about how Kamala doesn't have a plan, how like she doesn't have like any real clear policies, how she didn't inspire confidence at the DNC, and there were some inklings of him getting towards that point where he, like, I mean, JD Vance tried to do, where she just said that she only has platitudes, which I think is a real problem for her, and she did that a little bit during the debate where she really didn't have too many like specific points, but he totally made it about himself, just talking about fucking like, I don't even know who Abdul is. I don't even know who that is.
I know who it is. That's the funny story. He's the fucking Taliban chief, right? Trump literally actually
guy who's the head of the Taliban.
No, he evac'd him out of a Pakistani prison and brought him to the United States of America, which is why it's really funny when he just keeps saying like, "Oh, I sent him a photo of his house." It's like, no, dog, you took him out of jail. Like he was in prison. Okay, he was in prison. You got him released from prison and you brought him to Camp David. You did not send him a picture of his house unless you showed the photo of the Pakistani prison he was in. So that's like another thing. That's another lie that he loves repeating for some reason.
Yeah, this is an insane reference, but that moment reminded me of that YouTube video where he plays like Call of Duty with Walt Jr. Like people who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. But like when he said like, "I got your house," like I'm like, it sounded like he doxed him.
Apparently Taylor Swift just endorsed Kamala Harris on Instagram.
Oh my God.
It's Jover. It's Jover. It's fucking Joe.
She's feeling the news cycle from him.
Is it Jover? Oh, is it happening? Finally? No, she didn't. You guys are such liars, dude. What the fuck?
No, she did. She did. It's on her Instagram.
Oh, she did. She said register to vote. Like many of you, I watched the debate tonight. If you haven't already, now's a great time to do your research on issues at hand. It stands to these candidates.
Childless cat lady. It's over.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's the picture of her with a cat.
Oh my God.
He's gonna beat Don Jr. with a shoe
Bro,
over
all
this.
it took was for her to fucking hug a Trump supporter and then have like the entire Swifties on Twitter rip her ass and be like, you only cared about politics when your career was failing. She was like, no, I'm sorry. Actually, I love politics. It's my favorite thing to do.
I like that she kind of implies here that she was like undecided until she watched the debate.
Yeah. Recently, I was made aware that AI of me falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run was posted to the site. Oh, recently you were made aware. Sure. Okay. It really conjured up my fears around AI and the danger of spreading misinformation. It brought me to the conclusion I need to be very transparent about my actual plans for this election as a voter. The simplest way to combat misinformation is the truth. I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she's a steady-handed, gifted leader, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we're led by calm and not chaos. Damn, she's even doing the PR moves. Like she did watch that debate, or at least her fucking PR people watched that debate. Let me tell you, okay?
Yeah, they said we're backing. This is like the best indicator for like Kamala like so far because they are not going to back her ass until like unless she's like a clear shot to win. Like she was not endorsing Biden until Biden was leading by like 10 in the polls.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like the Waffle House Index, you know what I mean? for predicting elections. Like people will look at like Polymarket or whatever, or like betting odds, but like this is the real careful and considered calculated decision maker here, okay?
Yeah. She
was
has
so
like
hard
a Bloomberg journal about
Ooh, she likes Tim Walz. She doubled down on Tim Walz. I was so hard and impressed by her selection of running mate at Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ plus rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. I've done my research and I've made my choice. Oh my God. And the choice is yours.
The policy page. She had to drop the policy page.
That's what it was. She's a real policy head. She's a real policy head. She was like, yo, honestly, yeah, once I read the policy page, it was over. You know, this was it for me.
Yeah.
When I heard Kamala Harris is going to combat Iran, no matter what it takes, I was like, that's my vote.
Yeah. She said, I'm not voting for her unless I know the nukes are on the way to Beijing like at 11 a.m.
Oh, Jesus. Taylor Swift, childless cat lady, JD Vance. Oh, I can talk about JD Vance.
Don Jr. for the first time in his life, a lifetime of his own abuse that he unheeded himself. He should have listened to himself. He's going to beat Don Jr. with a shoe.
Dude, honestly, Donald Trump's biggest mistake was ever listening to Don Jr. That's when I knew this shit is cooked, okay? Perma-fried.
Yeah.
Like,
the
Don Jr., you don't even like him. Why would you ever listen to his opinion on who that sweaty fucking cokehead loser thinks is like cool?
If he had Doug, he'd still be contending in Minnesota. If he had Doug, he would be up in fucking like North Carolina now for sure.
Dude, I'm a Bergamaniac. Okay, I'm a Bergamaniac. I've been saying it. I was gonna vote. There were two VP picks that would have changed my decision. If Burgum was the VP, I would have voted for Donald Trump. And if Jesse Ventura was RFK Jr.'s vice president, I would have voted for RFK Jr. They both fucked up. They could have gotten my vote.
Jesse Ventura Green candidate like rumors in 2020.
Yeah,
I wanted that so badly.
Yeah, but he gets libbed up. Like he
endorsed a duopoly. He endorsed the Democrats.
He really did. Yeah, he really did. He was like, "I'm really excited for a woman to vote for a woman in the White House." I was like, "Damn, Jesse, what the fuck?"
It wasn't even like, "Oh, I'm like, oh, these guys are like the lesser of two evils." He went like full like DNC, like talking points. He was talking like a line on.
Yeah, a lot of our old heads have fallen.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders being like, yeah, I don't really agree with Dick Cheney a lot, but even he hates Donald Trump, and that's good. I was like, come on, bro, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, that Bernie, one guy who doesn't fuck around about being 82 years old.
I was like, Bernie, they're not gonna do card checks. Shut the fuck up. You don't have to destroy. They are not going to make you a junior partner in the coalition.
Yeah.
Okay, you're 800 years old. Why are you
They
doing
are never
this?
passing the fucking public option, man. It's not happening.
Yeah, they put him in the cuck chair, dude. They just keep whipping him for the crimes of contesting Hillary Clinton in 2016 forever.
His late stage career, he's like trying to work his way up to like better Senate committees. Like he's a fucking like decrepit Dixiecrat from 1950. He's trying to do the Richard Russell fucking strat.
He's a real team player. Surely.
If he stays into Congress until he's 90 years old, they'll let him like chair the Appropriations Committee like Robert Byrd.
No. They're gonna let him take Vermont. They're gonna let him take the old people in Vermont back to Canada so they can like purchase pharmaceuticals there.
They're gonna let him
please anything.
They're gonna let him build an FBI crime examination facility in Birmingham, and that'll be like the culmination of his life's work.
It feels bad. It feels bad watching him like that. But
I don't know. He was a big Russia head like during the Trump era. Maybe he just is lived up.
You were joking about voting for Trump, right? Oh my God, chatters. Yes. Shut the fuck up. Oh my Lord.
No, we would have actually voted for Trump if we picked North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. That's completely sincere. That was going to be the heel turn.
I forget that there's like 160,000 people in here, so like they have no fucking. Some of these people are just like tuning in for once, and they're like, "What the fuck's this guy saying?"
I'm a single issue voter about him picking Glenn Youngkin. This is like completely like what I believe.
Yes, I'm undoing every opinion that I've ever had. Because Doug Burgum is on the ticket.
Guy who looked like Brezhnev.
Yeah, but hotter.
Yeah,
his eyebrows are powerful.
Yeah, Trump's odds on betting markets have started tanking. He's down to 46 cents unpredicted. He's lost to degenerates.
Yeah, the copium tomorrow is gonna be so delectable. I can already sense it from here. First of all, everyone's gonna complain about the moderators fact checking.
So fucking funny.
Here is a really good idea. If you don't want to get fact checked, don't say Haitian migrants are eating cats on the most prominent national stage you've been on. Are you
when you're like 78 years old?
And then he started debating the moderators. He's like, actually, I saw it on television. Real old man hours over there. It was incredible.
I keep on getting recommended Megyn Kelly's tweets, and she's so fucking pissed off. She is so mad at the moderators.
Ben Shapiro.
Oh yeah, Ben Shapiro.
This debate won't matter.
This is what the Biden people said. This is exactly what they said.
Yeah, that's how you know this shit popped off.
Yeah.
This debate won't matter. It was just eliminated as an inflection point. The American people still know nothing about Kamala Harris' positions. Donald Trump is still Donald Trump, and the legacy media are still a giant flaming dog turd.
Don't go after them too hard, Ben.
Wow. He busted out the big words, the big boy words. His wife is not gonna let him sleep in the same bed tonight. Oh my God. Oh, it's gonna be delectable. It's gonna be delightful.
I'm gonna make the Trump replacement tier list.
Yeah. This is Trump never. Oh, the conservatives are in the chat. Trump never mentioned Haitian people. He never said Haitians. Yeah, dude. You're right. We haven't been paying attention to the same media cycle that the Republicans have been pumping this entire time.
Who does he think we're eating the cats?
Yeah, no, random. He actually was talking about like, random people in Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah. We just gotta get rid of that
Democrats.
one city. There's something in the water.
This is so funny. This level of cope from Trump heads is hilarious. He said Venezuelans though. Yeah, he said Venezuelans Aurora overtaking apartment complexes. He won the jank Uyghur vote with that one. A real Aurora head, my uncle. Anyway, yeah, this is what happens when you're extremely online. I keep fucking trying to repeat this to people, like, do not look at Twitter and assume that that's how normal people are. Can you explain this story to a bus driver? If the answer is no, if it fails the bus driver test, like, you probably shouldn't be running a national campaign on it. Oh my God.
The likes too hard.
Yeah. Megyn Kelly's mad. Oh, great. Taylor Swift's post. Yeah, of course Taylor Swift posted about who she's voting for president. Of course, it got 1 million likes in 13 minutes, dude. What are we talking about?
Funny that she repeatedly mentioned walls.
Yeah, no, I do like that. Yeah,
She said I would have been fucking for her if she like picked Shapiro.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah.
I'm reading the tea leaves. She's actually an anti-Zionist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wants Kamala to go off the ticket and be replaced with Walls. And Walls would be up by 10. I don't give a fuck. People can call me coping, but like at that point you just have zero issues.
Oh, dude, 100%.
We're getting
His oppo has been. They're like third removed, like distant cousins are voting for Trump. Like that's the oppo on that front is so awesome. They're like,
yeah,
they're talking about how he like swapped out his dog or some shit. Like it's just so, it's so bad. It's so stupid.
Today is they said that he said that he saw Trump supporters in Pennsylvania one time, and then the other day he said he saw them in Georgia. That's like the thing they're getting him on.
Did you
Like,
see this?
DUI.
Trump just posted literally 2 minutes ago, insider paper poll from Twitter on his Truth Social. Poll, Trump v. Harris, who won the presidential debate? 78% said Donald Trump. 23 hours remaining on the poll.
Have the live reaction polls come out yet? Oh no, it hasn't yet. I thought like Red Eagle Politics. I thought he said that like 75% said that she won. It was just him trying to expectation set by saying that the CNN poll would say that, which the CNN polls actually have been pretty like predictive in the past. People forget this, but Hillary actually like saw a big surge after she beat Trump in the first debate in 2016. So these things can matter, like especially in a race as tight as this one.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, Kamala decisively won tonight, like decisively.
Yeah.
That's not a question. But obviously this is always a matter of like how close the polls will be. And in terms of like proving herself as someone who can like meet Donald Trump, she will get a lot of fucking clout off of this too. Like the media will go crazy over it. Yes, I'm running the 3-minute ad break now. Okay, calm down. Yeah, you can, avoid those ads if you subscribe, chat. You already know. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. But overall, like I said, I think this is like
the big kind of looming question of what she stands for. Probably not. Does she need to resolve that? Maybe she doesn't need to resolve that. I wrote an article on my newsletter earlier today. I think that like her campaign really does need to get real and does need to start addressing these actual concerns and does need to start running more substantial stuff instead of just really like scripted platitudes. Like, I mean, the spot run thing actually did kind of land for me because that's kind of correct. She does just say good stuff is good all the time. But the fucking full Chiron for Taylor Swift endorses Kamala Harris.
Of course.
But, yeah. But like she, even with all of this, even with the DNC that really put her worst, like kind of the worst version of her on display, she's still leading in more than enough states to get 270 electoral votes. Like
Tim Miller says, just spoke with Lindsey Graham in the spin room. He said the debate team should be fired and Trump was unprepared. Disaster.
Yeah, it was like Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard. I mean,
Laura Loomer.
Laura Loomer was there?
Yeah.
I saw he brought her. I didn't know if she was part of the team.
I don't know if she was part of the team or not, but
yeah.
I'm still going to lie and say, turns out hanging out with Laura Loomer wasn't the best idea.
No, I get it. I get it. He was at least hanging out with her, yeah.
No, as soon as I saw her coming out, as soon as I saw her ugly ass walk out of that fucking plane, I was like, oh, this is going to be a fun night. Like, yeah. I thought he was going to be kind of boring. Like, I thought he was going to be kind of boring and not have that same energy, which might, I thought maybe that would like play well into, is Trump a moderate now type shit that the media loves like repeating, fucking Van Jones.
Yeah.
But nope. As soon as I saw Laura Loomer, I was like, oh, shit's going to be awesome tonight. He's going to say some unhinged ass bullshit. And he did.
Yeah,
and he
lived
fucking did. Laura was like, Mr. President, sir, please talk about the dogs and cats that the Haitian migrants are eating. And he was like, that's a great idea. Thank you, Laura.
Facebook. They are making so many memes about that so quickly. That and Abdul, they think that's the funniest shit ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck was happening there. Like, I just don't understand how he has like, did he look at DeSantis's team and go, that's great. We should do
Kamala called for a second debate.
Oh, Kamala already asked for it. Wait.
Yeah. It was 12 minutes ago.
Yeah, Kamala Harris asked for it, but I don't think Trump is going to do it.
No, he's going to say they're biased.
Yeah, he's going to say, yeah, you're right about that. I saw your tweet. Like, he's going to say how biased the moderation team was, and that's why he's not going to do it. But then that opens him up for a line of attack where, you know, they could just be like, he's a coward, he's running away.
Yeah, people, Red Eagle Politics is saying, oh, like, I thought that he did so badly in the debate against Hillary, but he won anyway. He would have lost that fucking, like, thing if, like, the Comey letter didn't come out. Kamala's not getting the Comey letter. Like, good fucking luck, man.
Yeah, the Ingram says if she's asking for another debate, they don't think she won this debate. They would be saying, mic drop, we're done. They don't think that she's in a position right now to win this race. No, I think it was a gimme. That's why. I think they saw how fucking easy this shit was. It was easy street. And they were like, oh, let's do that again, please. Let's do that every weekend.
Oh, Caitlin Clark liked the post where Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala. Caitlin Clark endorsement incoming. Angel Reese is going to back Trump now.
Oh, dude, they are. I mean, they already had secured the white woman vote. That's like, now it's permanent. It's perma-locked.
Mm-hmm.
There was a really funny tweet that I wanted to share with you. I think one of the Aiden Updates accounts said that like Kamala Harris is trying to appeal to the youth by using youth slang because she said families with young children need to afford a crib, need to buy a crib.
A crib?
No, they literally they thought that like
no.
The Aiden Ross
child care is one of the 3 issues they've let her talk about. So like that was like in a literal sense.
Yeah. See, but that's the fucking annoying thing is like when she does actually have like a coherent policy point that is like objectively popular, and then Trump is asked about what he would do on that front, he has nothing. Like even for that reason, like if you want to watch Trump fucking flail around, just like put fucking policies out there and be like, this is another thing that we're gonna do, so we can sit there and talk about how, like, if Kamala Harris gets elected, everyone will have health care. Oh, it was Aiden who
We
said
know
it.
that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. I was actually, my mother, too expensive.
Oh, never mind. It wasn't Aiden who was saying it. It was the Aiden Update account. Kamala Harris has already started the debate by incorporating slang into her speech. Crying emoji. God, these guys, thank God they will never be able to find a polling station. You know what I mean? Like, and
they're too young to vote anyways.
They're also ineligible to vote.
Yeah.
Like, luckily. Holy shit. Like, contextually, how the fuck do you hear that and think like, oh, she was using slang for house and not like a baby's crib?
Yeah.
That's so stupid.
That's her housing plan. Oh my God, the Facebook libs are going so crazy, like over the Taylor Swift endorsement.
Oh,
this is
for
how
sure.
I keep my what?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vivek said it was 3 against 1.
What is this? Oh, they're saying Kamala Harris had an earpiece and that she was getting fed lines. Let's go. Love that.
That's an earring.
No, you don't. No, it's a secret. It's a fake earring. It's not a real buy on. Okay. No, it's not a real earring. It's a fake earring that is getting. I mean, all of these are admissions of defeat.
Yeah. I need to see the CNN poll so badly.
Tim Walz learns about Harris, the Taylor Swift endorsement in real time. All right, I got to go pee real quick. I'll be back while this plays. You can speak if you want.
While we have been talking, somebody's just handed me something, and I'm going to do sort of a not very TV thing, and I'm going to read it to you in in totality. I'm going to read you the whole thing because this was, I don't think you know about this, but this was just posted online by a woman you might have heard of whose name is Taylor Swift. And she has posted this online along with a photo of her cat. And I'm going to read to you what she just posted. Quote, like many of you, I watched the debate tonight. If you haven't already, now is a great time to do your research on the issues at hand and the stances these candidates take on the topics that matter to you the most. As a voter, I make sure to watch and read everything I can about their proposed policies and plans for this country. Recently, I was made aware that AI of me, quote me, falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run was posted to his site. It really conjured up my fears around AI and the dangers of spreading misinformation. It brought me to the conclusion that I need to be very transparent about my actual plans for this election as a voter. The simplest way to combat misinformation is with the truth. Then she says, quote, I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she is a steady-handed, gifted leader, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we're led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of running mate Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ+ rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. I've done my research, and I've made my choice. Your research is all yours to do, and the choice is yours to make. I also want to say, especially to first-time voters, remember that in order to vote, you have to be registered. I also find it's much easier to vote early. I will link where to register and find early voting dates and info in my story. With love and hope,
he's like,
Taylor
I'm about
Swift,
to be the vice president.
Signed, childless cat lady. I have to get your response to that, Mr. Governor.
All those things, I am incredibly grateful, first of all, to Taylor Swift. I say that also as a cat owner, a fellow cat owner. Look, Swifties, you heard it. We know that it's there. That was eloquent, and it was clear. And that's the type of courage we need in America to stand up. We've seen it out of those Republicans who were at the DNC. We've seen it out of women who would like to have their own personal lives kept personal, but are forced to go out there because they nearly died because they can't get abortion services in a pregnancy. And now you have somebody like Taylor Swift coming out, making that very clear. This would be the opportunity, Swifties. KamalaHarris.com. Get on over there. Give us a hand. Get things going.
God damn. Wait, Trump is on ABC? Oh, no. He's licking his wounds? No shot.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God, he is.
We're looking at polls. We're looking at polls. The worst poll that we've had was 71 that I see. 71% to like 24 or 25%. Well, we'll look at it. But
all right, Whit. So if you still have me, he's walked a little bit away from our camera. Now he's at the edge there. You won't be able to hear him well. But one of the things you did hear was a question just asked by our Catherine Folders asking, why not commit to another debate if you believe that you won? He said he believes he won this debate. But then he was also asked, why be here in the spin room spinning about this debate if it's a debate that you believe was a clean win? We're going to try to get you as close as we can
it's over.
to
It's
Donald
over.
Trump. But I don't think you're going to be able to hear. Let me try to get my mic in there and see if you can hear Whit if you're still going through my camera here.
Yeah, we're listening. Let's see what we can hear.
Before I go, did I mention that he looked like complete shit?
debates. I thought this
Did you mention like what? What?
Did he look like complete shit? He looked awful.
Oh, yeah, he looked so angry and disheveled.
People were saying he looked darker than Kamala.
Well, I thought she was not very good tonight. She didn't protect the vice president. He's, the office of the vice president. And certainly, if you take a look at it, she was terrible with respect to the president. She's trying to get herself away from Biden, and she wasn't able to do that tonight. I think it was a big thing. They wanted to disassociate with Biden, and they weren't able to do it. What did you think of
Mr. He is crashing out.
Mr. President.
This is the closest you can get to a crash out.
Yeah, I have nothing to do with Project 24. What do you think of the moderators' fact-checking used throughout the debate? Well, I think the moderators were very unfair. I actually thought they were just happy.
All right.
Ettingermentum, are you here? Are you here? WAPO poll came out.
Yeah, I am. I was just muted. I'm still here. Yeah.
Yeah, Wapapo came out. Swing state debate focus group has Harris winning 22-2.
Oh. Was that like the undecided voters thing?
He's having a fucking meltdown on camera right now. This is insane. I don't know. I'm gonna try to find it real quick. Hold on. Oh my God, he's still going. He's in the spin room. Oh God.
He talked about polls that we're not certain of where they exactly came from as showing him up in the race. But point being is Donald Trump has made this unscheduled appearance here to the spin room to say that he won.
David
but
Muir,
he got asked the question,
the goat
why
of the
be
night.
here in the spin room if you believe this was a clean win? And he didn't really fully answer that.
All right, Jay, forgive me as we're
it's
following
the swing
everything.
state one.
Former President Trump right there in the spin room. We are going to step away from this just for a second. We'll come back if anything happens. But we want to talk to our Republican and Democratic strategists,
that's not like
Reince
the
Priebus
CNN
and
live
Donna Brazil, to
reaction.
get
That's
their
still
reaction
pretty
to everything.
like terrible.
What'd you say? Say
I really
again?
want to see what the two people say because they usually have interviews.
Yeah. Going into the spin room after you did a debate is the worst possible thing you could do.
Yeah. She needs to give more fucking interviews. Like she can do fine. She needs to believe in herself more.
Yeah. I'm actually shocked at how much better she was on the debate stage than she was with Dana Fash.
Yeah.
I think it's because she's secretly a Hamas supporter.
Yeah.
And like
yeah.
she was worried that Dana could like smell it on
Get
her.
around that. Yeah.
Yeah. And was gonna fucking laser her.
They had real moderators there instead of fake journalists.
Well, I mean, yeah, dude. CNN is so cooked. I mean, fuck CNN. Actually, they're such dickheads, dude.
Yeah, this suck.
Yeah. JD's on CNN.
Oh.
Let's see what he's saying now. They cooked him on ABC. I don't know if you saw that.
How you wanted it to go in terms of Harris clearly trying to get under his skin, talking about crowd sizes, talking about former officials like John Kelly and Mark Esper and others. I mean, I heard from some Trump advisors who said he took the debate too much. Do you believe that?
No, look, I think that what we saw from Kamala Harris was a lot of platitudes. It was a lot of plans that had no real substance behind them and no real precision behind them. And what is most interesting, and it's really the sort of microcosm of this entire race, is Kamala Harris has a record. Donald Trump has a record. Donald Trump is proud of his record and is running to it. Kamala Harris is running away from her record and pretending that somehow her term as president is going to be radically different from her term as vice president, but she can't actually articulate why. And in fact, to the extent that she articulates it at all, it's by running away from positions that she clearly held just a few years ago or even a few weeks ago.
So why didn't Trump push her more on that? Because that is what we hear from you every day on the campaign trail, is talking about her reversals. He did not really talk about why haven't you done what you're saying you'll do until his closing statement. Do you think he should have done that sooner?
Well, I think he did. I mean, he did it in the closing statement. He also really hammered her on her inconsistencies, right? This is a person who said she wanted to ban fracking. Now she says she doesn't. She wanted to defund the police. Now she said she doesn't. She wanted a secure border. I thought that he really did, actually. On three issues in particular, I think he's very focused on hammering Kamala Harris's inconsistencies
Not the way
with her
most
record,
of us saw
what
the
she says
debate.
now versus what she said even a few weeks ago in some cases. It was on the border, it's on fracking, and it's on defund the police. That was clearly what he's most focused on, and I think it's not surprising because those are three of the issues that the American people care the most about. I mean, look, this is a person who was to the far left of her own party and now is trying to pretend that she's effectively Donald Trump. My favorite line of the night is when he said she's going to don a MAGA cap and pretend that she agrees with me on everything. I think the American people are too smart to be fooled by Kamala Chameleon acting to be somebody that she's clearly not.
She kind of smirked when he said that he was going to send her one. On
Listen,
abortion, though.
This is a man who saw the former vice president under Donald Trump get almost executed and said, "That's my job. Like, I love that. I will be your man, sir."
Yeah.
Like, he knew what he was signing up for. You know what I mean?
It was so funny when he was like, she was talking to me like I'm a child. Like, you got to get that shit resolved, man. You're like 40 years old.
Yeah.
legislation that has no chance of being brought. I think it's a totally reasonable point. But again,
the CNN instant
the main
poll coming up
substantive
after
issue is
this. I
Donald
have to
Trump
stay on for
believes
this.
that abortion
I want to
should
know
be a
if she can,
state
because I remember
policy,
Hillary. They
and
said
Kamala
she
Harris
won, she got
fundamentally thinks that
60% people
abortion
said-
should be funded by
Focus
taxpayers
group.
right up to the moment.
Okay,
of
no,
it.
they
Focus
said
group coming
instant
up.
poll before that. Yeah, no, I swear I didn't. I did not. Yeah, instant poll. Okay, I want to stay on for that because I think the record. I know like Biden had a really huge victory in like the first debate in 2020, and Hillary did really well in 2016. And like if you look at the polling from 2016, it was like pretty impactful. Hillary was only up by 2, which is about as much that like Kamala is up by now, like kind of ironically enough. And after the debate, but before Access Hollywood, she went up by 4. If Kamala goes up by 4, she's going to be leading in every single swing state. She could like really like be in a solid position. So like I mean like this is I mean she accomplished a lot of what she wanted to.
Yeah. JD Vance trying to spin this is so
And the question
so
of how
shitty.
far he would go is
terrible
to
position
me
for him to
like
be
a
in.
semantic thing that doesn't
Mhm.
actually make sense.
They
It's an
love
absurd
making him do shit like
proposition.
this.
It's never going to happen. And I think what President Trump is saying is, I don't like to deal in these absurd hypotheticals.
Dave
It's
Portnoy
not going to
says he doesn't
happen,
think it's
and he's
going
been
well for
clear that he
Trump.
doesn't support it.
Well, I think there
over.
may be some women voters who would like for him would have liked for him to answer.
He's losing Barstool.
Yeah.
Is he brought up this misleading false claim that you yourself have talked about in recent days about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, abducting people's pets and eating them, which officials there have said is not true. You yourself acknowledged it may be false on Twitter. You still told people to keep spreading it. But Trump just amplified it to tens of millions of people who were watching.
He's losing
Why
everybody from
push
Taylor Swift
something
to Barstool.
that's not
He's gonna,
true?
Kamala's
First of
gonna
all,
get,
city
Kamala's
officials have
gonna,
not said
gonna get
it's
100%
not
of the high
true.
school
They've said
vote.
they don't have all the evidence.
They
But
said
we've
they have
heard,
no evidence.
We've heard from a number of constituents on the ground, Caitlin, who
Why
both
do they think
firsthand
this
and
is a
secondhand
good thing to
reports
run on?
saying
Like,
this stuff
who
is
fucking
happening.
told
So
them
they
that this is
very
a
clearly,
solid story
meaning
to go
the people
with?
on the ground dealing with this think that it is happening.
I can't
And I
believe
think
they're
that it's
like
important for
tripling down
journalists
on
to
this
actually
shit
get on the
over and
ground
over
and
again.
uncover this stuff for
What
themselves.
the fuck
When
is
you
going
have
on?
A lot of people saying my pets are being abducted, or geese at the city pond are being abducted and slaughtered right in front of us. This is crazy stuff. And again, whether those
He's
exact
fucking doubling down on
rumors
this.
turn out to be mostly true, somewhat true, whatever the case may be. Caitlin, this town has been ravaged by 20,000 migrants coming in. Healthcare costs are up. Housing costs are up. Communicable diseases like HIV and TB have skyrocketed in this small Ohio town. This is what Kamala Harris's border policies have done. And I think it's interesting, Caitlin, that the media didn't care about the carnage wrought by these policies until we turned it into a meme about cats. And that speaks to the media's failure to care about what's going on in these communities. If we have to meme about it to get the media to care, we're going to keep on doing it because the media should care about what's going on.
I saw you say that. I think the media does care about it. I just read a very lengthy report in the New York Times on it. PBS NewsHour did a whole story on it. But can I ask
by
you?
us
but
talking
you
about
said-
it and bringing it up, nobody cared about this until we raised
Senator,
this
you
issue.
talked about Senator, you talked about that your office has gotten a lot of reports. I mean, if someone calls your office and says they saw Bigfoot, that doesn't mean they saw Bigfoot. Why? I mean, you have a sense of responsibility as a running mate, and he certainly
that's
does
formerly
as the candidate
Daily
to
Wire's
not promote false
Caitlin.
information,
Look,
right?
Caitlin, it's a totally fair point, but nobody's calling my office and saying that they saw Bigfoot. What they're calling and saying is we're seeing migrants kidnap our dogs and cats.
Yeah, it's a fake story. You just believe it, dumb
Now, again,
fuck.
I have a responsibility as a United States Senator. I think the media has a responsibility as an institution that cares about truth to actually take people seriously when they say their lives have been ruined by this migrant crisis. And again, if every single thing that the media says about this story is false, the verifiable facts are that this community has had their lives destroyed by 20,000 migrants coming in and uprooting life.
Again, officials said no credible evidence of the claim. But Senator J.D. Vance, thank you for joining us with
Thanks,
your
Caitlin.
debate reaction. Jake, back to you.
Oh my gosh, she was in the Daily Wire. She was in the Daily Caller. That's so much
Interesting
worse.
comment. I mean, I'm looking at a New York Times story from 8 days ago about the immigration crisis in Springfield
like
and
even
the problems
worse,
created
right?
there, saying we have to make up nonsense that isn't true so that the media covers things that the media is already covering as an odd defense. But I digress.
Oh, so there is an immigration crisis in Springfield, Ohio. Thank God, CNN. Thank you for fucking defending this very real thing that's occurring. God, I fucking hate these pieces of shit so much. These monstrous pieces of shit. I swear to fucking God.
There was a labor shortage in the in like the town. They were like they didn't have enough workers. It was like a lot of them like said this was like a big benefit to them. But
Yeah, a lot
whatever.
like I've seen like 8 different fucking business owners be like the Haitian migrants have been awesome. Like they've been working really hard. They're great.
Yeah, there was some story where like some like pastor was like, these guys are religious as hell. I have like all these people are finally going to like the church again.
Yeah, I've been begging the media to ask a very simple question for months that David Muir, my sexy idol, finally fucking asked, who was like, walk us through the steps of how you would deport 11 million people.
Yeah.
And of course, predictably, Trump did not respond to that and talked about how they're eating, you know, the migrants are eating fucking cats or whatever.
That and the healthcare stuff, it felt like it was like going into like the real world, like we're like the sane universe.
What is this? She wasn't at the Daily Caller. What was she at? I thought Caitlin Collins, like she used to work for like the Daily Wire or the Daily Caller or something.
She did work at the Daily Caller. She worked at the Daily Caller.
Yeah. Wire chatter saying, yeah. Which is even worse because Daily Caller is the Tucker Carlson shop,
Yeah,
right?
they were like the guys who were like too racist, so Facebook had to start promoting the Daily Wire instead of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, she used to be the White House correspondent for the Daily Caller. She worked there for like years. She worked
Trump
there
is
for
on
3
Fox.
years.
Oh, Trump is on Fox in the spin room defending his.
To be fair, they weren't, but I felt very comfortable.
Yeah.
We have the best policy. She has no policy.
You know, one thing that interested me, because I've known you for a long time, and one of the things that I was watching in you tonight is that you were all business. You know, a lot of times when you're at your rallies or we do a town hall.
Sean, they're destroying our country.
Is that what it was? Is it the seriousness of the moment?
There's nothing to smile about. You know, I'm a good smiler, but there's nothing to smile about. They're destroying. We have 21 million people that have been released into our country, and many of them are criminals and terrorists and people
Laken
from
Riley,
mental institutions.
Rachel Morin, Jocelyn Nungary.
All dead.
I list all these names on the show. People murdered, people raped, people victims of violent crime.
He's memorized
names a lot of people never.
26 people's names. 26.
I was with them.
That's insane.
I was with them.
Who else you've met other families? You met the families of
I met them all.
Afghanistan.
Nungary. I met.
You met Nungary's family.
Yeah, I met 5 or 6 of them. Not even talking about the 13 soldiers that were killed in Afghanistan, the families of the 13 soldiers, which Biden won't even talk to, and he's the one that caused their death. Just as if he had a pistol in his hand, he and her caused their death. Just as if literally they had a gun in their hand.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. When you're in a situation like that, what is going through your mind? What goes on behind the scenes? How do you prepare for your debates?
Well, I think I always say I've been preparing all my life for these debates. You know, you can't go in like she did. She goes into a room and she memorized lines, more or less. I thought I got one cute one. I'm talking when I said, I'm talking, when she started interrupting.
Yeah, she said that to Mike Pence.
I wanted to get even for that. You know, that was not very nice what she did. But no, I thought it was.
That was cute. He did hit that. He practiced that.
It's interesting that the one line that really stuck out that did make me laugh out loud is when you said you're going to send her a MAGA hat. There are a lot of positions now. All of a sudden, she's come over to your side. She's been against the border wall. She's been against.
There's only one problem. If she ever won, immediately from the day after that election, everything would go back to confiscate your guns and forget about oil and everything else. You know, they were cutting back on oil way back. They got rid of Anwar, the biggest oil site perhaps in the world in Alaska. They did things that are so bad and so destructive, but energy prices started doubling up. And she immediately went back to the Trump plan. But I would have been now 4 times higher than they are right now because that was 3.5 years ago.
Right.
When she cut it, she cut everything out. She went to wind and went to all this other stuff that doesn't work from an economic standpoint and even a visual standpoint. I don't get the wind. You take these gorgeous plains and deserts and all this stuff, they put these windmills up, they go up like a 30-story building in some cases. They destroy everything, they cut out all, and the environmentalists say, aren't they wonderful? But it's the most expensive form of energy, and it's never going to do for our country.
So if we look at the issues on the economy, on immigration, on law and order, on energy, and America's role in the world, is there anything you can point to that you would say they have been successful on?
No, they have been unsuccessful at everything. And even the economy, I said, as part of the economy, you've let 21 million people, more than that, I think, with all the gotaways.
What were you saying during the debate about one of the
killing
protesters
our
debating
economy.
down ballot votes? Oh, it's when he was like, it's when he literally was like, oh, you can't pass any of that. You can't pass any of that because the Senate is 50-50. It's like, you never want to say that, dumbass. Like, now you've given a perfect opportunity to the Democratic Party to be like, Trump's right. That's why we have to win the Senate, and that's why we have to win the House. You know? It's like
they're literally running in like these states, like in Maryland, like against Larry Hogan. They're saying that these like Republican votes are going to stop them from bringing back Roe, and like Vance is literally just saying, "Oh yeah, they're right. Anybody who votes with McConnell is going to vote like against this stuff."
Yeah. Oh, CNN is back, and they're doing the focus group.
Saying about the debate.
Yes, I need it. I need it.
Yeah, Anderson, we talk about how critical Pennsylvania is for each candidate's pathway to 270 electoral votes. We're here in Erie County, Erie, Pennsylvania. We're sitting currently at Mercyhurst University, been wonderful host for us. The reason why we're here 400 miles away from the debate is Erie County is the swingiest county in the most important swing state of this campaign. There's no question about it. When Obama in 2012, when Trump in 2016, when Biden in 2020, the last two cycles, just about 1,500 votes each separated the two candidates. So we wanted to ask voters who have not made a firm decision yet who they want to vote for, what they actually saw in this debate. Now, these are voters that have in the past supported Republicans and Democrats. They have in the past shown support for former President Trump or for Joe Biden. But coming into this night, they told us that they had not made up their minds yet in this election. So just to step back a little bit, show our focus group two people, Erie residents, again, most important state, most important county in that state. We asked for a show of hands before the debate who hadn't made up their mind yet, but thought this debate may determine
not a single
where they would
person
go
under the
with
age
their
of
vote.
50 in
to
that.
start with this debate, who do you think won by
Youngest
show of
Erie
hands?
residents.
Former President Trump. Two, I'll give it 4, but tentative. 2 over there. What about Vice President Harris?
Damn! Damn!
More hands. For those of you who thought this debate could be determinative, how many of you have made up your minds based on what you saw tonight on stage in Philadelphia? Raise your hands.
It's not.
All right.
Oh.
I want to ask you why. What did you see that brought you to a conclusion?
I think it's important to remember that we are voting for the leader of our country and not who we like the most or who we want in our wedding party, but who is actually going to make our country better. And we're in an incredibly unique situation where we've had both of the candidates in office before, and we've gotten to see what they would do. And when facts come to facts, my life was better when Trump was in office. The economy was higher, inflation was lower, things were better overall. And now with Kamala's administration, things haven't been so fantastic. And she's saying she can fix the problems that her administration has caused, but I just don't know if I can afford to take that risk.
Were you leaning towards the former president coming in tonight?
Probably.
And did you vote for him in 2016 or 2020?
I did.
So, decision made there. What did you think?
As to who I would vote for in this election, I strongly felt Kamala was more optimistic, more respectful. I thought she had plans that she tried to describe in the minutes worth of time that she had. I mean, they really were limited with their time. So, I don't know, I just felt more strongly for her as opposed to her opponent.
I want to talk about some of the moments of the debate because, as we told you guys before,
Bro, every
the
time I
debate,
think about like swing districts in swing states, and I hear from like undecided voters in said swing districts in swing states, I am reminded that the Electoral College in the current way that it's structured is the dumbest fucking possible way to do elections. Like these people barely know how to exist and be human. Like what the I feel like they're operating on an entirely different plane of existence.
Because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer
Very
abortion,
democratic
because the
from
baby
you,
is
bro.
born,
Shut the fuck up.
is okay.
Hey, dumbass, I'm saying I'm advocating for more democracy and not less, because the election should not be left up to like one fucking district in one fucking swing state. Like you're anti-democracy in this situation. Like if you're pro-electoral college.
Government, and Donald Trump certainly should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
Now that sound, obviously, that moment was a critical moment, not just for the debate on one of the critical issues of this campaign on the issue of reproductive rights and abortion, but it was also one that garnered significant reaction from our focus group, which I want to ask about right now. For those of you who responded positively to Vice President Harris's answer, tell me why. Yeah, please.
I responded positively to her answer because I do struggle with the abortion issue, and I don't know that she and I agree, but I don't know that, like she said, that government should be in charge of people's decisions. And I think that when she was talking about situations of rape and incest, I think that those happen more than we think that they do. And I don't know, I just felt her impassioned response and that she would carry it out.
And that resonated with you in the moment.
Yes, it did.
Who else had a positive response? Go ahead, please.
I felt like it was her most genuine and passionate that I saw her pretty much throughout it. I didn't necessarily agree with what she was saying, but my favorable reactions were because it was nice to see the passion and believability that she stands behind, and then have something to gauge more of what she says on, since she hasn't spoken a lot solidly about a lot of issues.
And I think what's been interesting, again, following how you guys were tracking the debate, which is a fascinating experience, and I should know, nobody in this room has been listening to the post-game coverage, nobody in this room has been listening to the analysis. We've actually all been talking amongst ourselves, and it's been a really great conversation. There was another critical moment, and this was Donald Trump's best moment based on your guys' responses, and it was when he was discussing Afghanistan. Listen.
We were getting out. We would have been out faster.
No one cares about this. I will always push this. No one cares about this, okay? People in media and defense contractors cared more about this than anybody else, okay? And then they shut the fuck up about it because we dumped all the funds from Afghanistan into Ukraine anyway. So don't worry. Those weapons contracts are still safe. Nobody fucking is like, oh my God, the 13 of our best soldiers died. I'm sorry, okay? That comes across as like crazy, ridiculous, maybe a little bold, okay? But no. This is not a thing that you can fucking push for. No, there's no shot. People care less about the 13 of our best troops dying in Afghanistan than they do about fucking Israel-Palestine. And it seems like none of these motherfuckers give a shit about Israel-Palestine anyway. So like, I'm telling you right now, that is just like a direct fucking laser from Trump to be like, that's the Hunter Biden of this election cycle, which is ironic because he also tried to bring up the Hunter Biden situation as well. Which was great. I love that he did a callback to Hunter Biden.
Iraq back under President Bush.
And when I saw that we were leaving that amount of high-tech equipment in the hands of our enemy, and later that day or later that week, I saw on the news where them celebrating with our guns in their hands, I realized what a travesty that was. In the loss of money in that we abandoned when we left, plus the very bullets that we left there that they were shooting at us as we flew away into planes.
We have a lot more to get to with this group. We're going to get to them in a moment.
I don't understand how you believe that people don't care about that event as an
American.
American. It was objectively a good thing, and that's precisely the reason why only 13 American military members died in Afghanistan under the Biden reign, whereas 67 military members died in Afghanistan when Trump was president. You want to know why one number was larger than the other? Because that's what happens when you fucking pull out of a country, okay? Automatically, magically, no soldiers die in Afghanistan if there are no soldiers to be in Afghanistan. That's it. And the dumb fucks over at the Kamala Harris campaign should probably reiterate that position over and over again to be like, hey, you know, obviously not a single veteran should ever die. Not a single soldier should ever die. But the reality of the matter is 67 of our beautiful troops died under your reign. You admitted that. They were sniping. The Taliban was sniping our fucking troops. You said it yourself. Okay? Get the fuck out of here, dude. What are we talking about? What are we fucking talking about? There's also something additionally funny about like talking about the Taliban swinging around American weapons because it's like, yeah, dog, we gave them those weapons many, many years ago. Okay? Like years prior. They used it on us because we gave them the weapons originally when they were fighting against the Russians. Nate Silver said the debate is much closer if you watch with the sound off. Yeah, big brain shit, but it's not. Because even on the optics front, I think that was also very cowardly, by the way, from the Democratic Party. Let's just get back to shitting on the Democrats for a second. Very cowardly from the Democratic Party. They got like their first ever bad press, and that was when the Biden honeymoon ended. Basically, when the Biden honeymoon ended, and the media started like ripping into the Biden admin for pulling out because they're fucking monstrous pieces of shit, and care only about their defense contractors that run ads on their fucking website at the top of the hour for 3 minutes, which of course you can avoid by subscribing. The debate is so close if you don't use any of your senses. Yeah. The debate is so close. I closed my ears. I closed my eyes. I, lost my sense of taste. And that's why it was close. Now, the real question is this consequential? And that's what I was trying to talk about with respect to what the goals are. If the goals are to win new voters, because Trump is already locked in. He's got the base. Okay, he's got his base. Is he going to get new people? Like, do you know many people in your life or anyone around you that is like, who's this Trump guy? I'll bite. Like, let me try to figure this guy out. What's going on with this Trump guy? Talk to me. Like, no, he is maxed out on name recognition. And that is precisely the reason why when he got shot in the fucking head, okay, Asmin's chat, dog, if you think Asmongold's chat weren't already Trump voters, I don't know what to fucking tell you. Yeah, exactly. That's my point. He's not expanding the base with Asmongold's chat. Also, none of them are going to vote anyway because they're too busy being fucking permanently stapled to their goddamn chairs playing fucking Horde. Okay? Shut the fuck up. Asmongold's audience is going to fucking vote Trump. Oh my God, I can't believe it. No, they're not going to vote for anybody because they don't, okay? Anyway, regardless, even Asmongold's chat had a poll with Harris getting 40%. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's way higher than I would have thought.
Yeah, like this is, shocking.
Does CNN have their shitty poll out?
I thought you said their poll was good, and you
I
were
haven't
waiting
seen it
for
yet. Their poll was good 8 years ago. I haven't seen it yet.
The memes for the cats and dogs line has arrived.
Eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats, they're eating.
Oh my God.
They're eating.
Funny.
That was really perfectly timed. He's so griped up.
Yeah. 16 debate thoughts, mostly rather bullish for Harris. But to be fair, the set of questions were pretty friendly to Harris. Nothing about Biden's fitness for office, for instance, even though his catastrophic failure in the first debate is the reason that she rather than Biden was on stage tonight. Why would they ask Kamala Harris?
He's not gonna be president after January. Like, who gives a shit?
Why would they ask? Why would they ask Kamala Harris, who's currently running for president, about the outgoing president's fitness, dude?
Yeah.
This is like, I'm sorry, I love Ryan Grimm. I love him. You guys know this. He was complaining about how like they didn't fact check Kamala Harris. It's like, yeah, they didn't because she's a Democrat. And that doesn't mean because as a Democrat, she never lies. Sometimes Democrats lie too, especially when they tell you they're going to do good things and then never follow through on it. But most Democrats are too scared to come out and just like make bold statements, even in terms of like good policy positions, let alone bold statements that like justify any of those policy positions.
The insurance companies are eating your cat.
Like, I'm sorry, Kamala Harris didn't say that, like, yeah, Kamala Harris didn't do the reversal and said, like, every white guy wants to shoot up a school or some shit. I don't know what the Democratic version of that would be. You know what I mean? The only time, actually, that Kamala Harris did lie was when she was like, oh, Hamas was doing mass rapes on October 7th, which, of course, ain't a single fucking person in the media is ever going to correct that record because obviously if they did that, they get fucking shot out of a cannon. So, that's not going to happen regardless. So, of course, she's not like lying on any unhinged issues, whereas Trump is fucking lying all the goddamn time. Like, the reality of the matter is, like, yes, of course, fact checking from moderators is a good thing. I think it is a really good thing. And in prior years, it wasn't a thing that happened very frequently because at least like most of the Republican candidates, regardless of like how awful they were and how Trump is a continuation of like the regular Republican agenda in very meaningful ways, they at least were more buttoned up and wouldn't ever fucking say Haitians are eating dogs and cats. Like, I think Mitt Romney was corrected once. That was like a historic moment. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow. I think the CNN poll came out, it was 63% Harris.
Where is
this
it?
is just what some fucking guy on Twitter said. I don't know if it's true or not.
No, it is. It is.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
Say
63%
Kamala Harris won the debate. Only
Whoa.
37%
Those are
say Donald
2016
Trump won the
first
debate,
debate numbers.
and that is quite different than the expectations going into this
Yeah, that's
among
really
this
high.
group of debate watchers.
Yeah,
I think
I did not think she was going to do this well.
Who do you
Yeah.
expect to win the
Like,
debate?
straight
I don't know if
Well, it
those are
was
his worst numbers
50-50.
ever, but that's
50% expected
close.
Harris, 50% expected Trump to win the debate. That was before the debate, and we just showed you where it ended up afterwards, 63% to 37%. And take a look at
history
this,
is any
Jake.
indication,
This
this
is a
should probably
complete
result in a
reversal
bump
from what
for
we
her.
saw in June.
Oh,
Compare
yeah.
these numbers to Biden. In
think
June,
it's not
you
necessarily
see
a bump
that it
due
was
to like
67% to 33%.
the things that we talked about in terms of like, people heard her policies and were like really invested, but more so a bump about like, people want someone who is a winner and like they will be less reluctant to like outwardly say that they support Kamala Harris.
Yeah, let me see what the CNN
All right, David
numbers for
Chalian,
Trump versus
while,
Biden
no
were.
doubt, this debate will not be quite as consequential.
Inverse
as the last
Biden
one.
numbers. Yeah.
It does seem as though, Dana Bash, that at least according to the instant polls of debate watchers, people think that Kamala Harris resounds.
Yeah, it's very close to inverse Biden numbers. In the Biden debate, they said 67% of people thought that Trump won, and this isn't really that different. It's within the margin of error. So congratulations, Trump. You came within the margin of error of like literally the worst debate performance in the history of elections.
Undecided voters.
The literal only difference in policy of Harris and Trump on the border is the intensity of the rhetoric. Crime panic and scapegoating of migrants is bipartisan. Yeah. As it stands on the policy front, Trump's policies are definitely worse than Kamala Harris's, but like Kamala Harris's are right wing as fuck. They are literally 2020 Trump era policies, like directly written by a Trumper fucking from Oklahoma. Like, what are we talking about?
No clue where those numbers came from, and he was
James
asked about it at the spin
Langford.
room and didn't give an answer. But
He
I
didn't
also
respond
think,
to that. I was kind of curious in seeing how he'd
there were some
respond to that, but he
risks
didn't
here
really
for
say
her
anything.
tonight, and she had a lot of work to do. And I'm thinking
Yeah,
about
I was
earlier
also
when-
that's the other thing. Like, I thought that it would be a gimme for Trump to be like, do you believe her? Like, if I'm in Trump's camp, I would just keep saying like, you called my supporters Nazis for 4 fucking years for wanting to build a wall. You didn't do that. You let the migrants pour in. They started fucking up the country. And then you started recognizing that they were doing that. So then you literally tried to fucking push for. Did I just get 500 gifted subs? Holy shit. Mate feed art. Jesus Christ, dude. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's insane. It's still going. A bro stole. Mate feed art stole. Is this the Russian? Dude, am I being funded by Russia right now? Is that what's going on?
Yeah,
What the fuck?
they're the next Tim Pool.
Yeah. Ukraine is the greatest enemy of mankind.
Yeah.
I love that video. That video lives in my mind, dude. When he just does the little fist on the table, like he's trying to act like he's angry about Ukraine existing.
I haven't seen that.
They're not even following. They're just gifting hella subs. What the fuck?
Damn, it is Russia.
Maybe. They're still going.
Yeah, this is the highest share. It's not the biggest spread against him, but it's the highest share his opponent has ever gotten in an instant poll.
Yeah.
1960, Nixon was the vice president.
Yeah, this is like in the territory
criticism
of like
John
the
Kennedy
really,
was
really
that he
bad
was too
debate
young,
against Biden.
too callow, too inexperienced. After that first debate, that went away.
Yeah, maybe Trump will
because
drop
people
out.
Thought, at the
Yeah.
very least, that Kennedy.
They're going to put in
showed that he
JD,
stood up
and he's going to lose by
was
18 points.
Nixon's equal and
like
perhaps
the
his
polls say,
superior.
and we'll finally
1980,
live in the real
Jimmy
world.
Carter, a lot of concern. Was Ronald Reagan too big a risk? And after that debate, people were reassured. They didn't like Carter particularly.
Plus
They were
666
reassured we can
free
take this
subs.
jump into Reagan. In the New York Times poll over the weekend, 3 times as many people said they needed to know more about Kamala Harris than said that about Donald Trump. And I got to think for a lot of that 28% of Americans that they were reassured by what they saw tonight. So I think that it gives permission to support her for people that had doubts.
Well, there's 2 things I noticed. One was the word that
Chris
Senator J.D.
Wallace
Vance used,
watching
the
the
word
watching the
platitudes.
broadcast,
We
repeating our
talked to
talking
Caitlin
points.
Collins about how he describes the ability
Shame.
of Vice President Harris to articulate her platforms. It's what is demanded of the incumbent versus what was actually provided by a
Democrats
former
have
incumbent.
raised
She's expected to talk in
$9
very
million
granular detail.
in the past
Trump
hour.
had very many bald assertions, and yet he believes that he was successful in that endeavor.
Did you hear
nonetheless.
that?
The other issue is this important idea of managing expectations. She has described herself from the very get-go since.
Mate Feed Art said, I watch your content via YouTube all the time, but I never got to catch your stream. Thanks for being my goat. Holy shit. Well, thank you for the unimaginable amount of fucking gifted subs that you just gifted. That was wild. All the Swifties. Yeah. 666 gifted subs.
Thing
It's like
as
12
winning
a.m.
an
my
election,
time,
and
so
there's
I'm
still
gonna
many
probably
days
log
to
off,
go.
But I finally got the
Alright.
poll that I wanted.
I'm sorry. Well, yeah. Now that you got your CNN poll. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much, ettingermentum. Where can people find you?
On Twitter, ettingermentum, at ettingermentum, and ettingermentum.news. I will probably be writing an article tomorrow about a Trump replacement tier list in the aftermath of this. But thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure. Hopefully, we'll be back the next debate if there is one. and then election night, we'll see how that goes.
All right.
Probably like well for her at this point because nothing ever happens. The Democrats always win.
Yeah, because they cheat. They lie, cheat, and
Yes,
steal.
exactly. Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, more spin.
Tonight, what would you say?
Debate tonight. This was my best debate. We had a 92% rating in one poll. We had an 86% rating in another. We had 77% in another. We won every one of the polls that came out tonight, and there were quite a few of them.
Were asked if you would veto a national.
Bro, this is another
And you did not
anti-Trump
say yes
race,
or no.
dude.
What is your answer to that?
He's
All you have
just
to do
so
is check
bad.
it. It was a perfect answer on abortion, and I've done a great job in that, and I brought our country together. Thank you.
Yes or no? Will you debate Harris? That was former President Donald Trump earlier as he was exiting the spin room. Joining me now, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, a surrogate of the former president. You heard Donald Trump there talking about the debate. Would you say that Donald Trump won this debate?
He had a very strong performance. No doubt, I thought the two moderators were absolutely biased. And two things that you walk away with. Number one, we know who Donald Trump is. 4 years of Donald Trump, we had very low unemployment. We saw 7 million jobs created, 2/3 going to minorities and to women. We saw HBCU funding hit a record level and made the funding permanent. We frankly saw research on sickle cell anemia accelerated. What we didn't see in this debate was who is Kamala Harris? We've seen her change her position time and time again, and tonight we have no clarity on her position. She's now for fracking when she was against it. She now wants a border wall when she was against it. The border czar herself certainly did not go to the border for 3+ years. She's had 3 years to tell the American people who she is, and we still don't know who she is. Where does she stand on the number one issue the American people care about? The economy, inflation, the cost of living. We don't know.
Well, and does it bother you that Donald Trump won't say where he stands on a really important issue, which is abortion?
Actually, he's been very clear on the issue
But why
of
would he have to
abortion.
say yes or no tonight?
Well, here's what he said. It is a state's issue. The American people are solving that problem state by state by state, exactly where the echo chambers around the country wanted the issue. What we did not hear was Kamala Harris answer the question, does she support abortions in the 3rd trimester, the 7th, 8th, and 9th month? She refused to answer that question. We have one candidate who is absolutely crystal clear that the voters in the states will make the decision. Roe v. Wade is gone. And one candidate who would not say, I refuse to have late-term abortions.
Well, she didn't say where she believed the restriction should be.
She
and
said
he
she
did
wanted to
not
go back to Roe v. Wade, which would allow for abortion
he did
up
not
until the day of
say-
birth.
And he did not say, which of course you know is rare and doesn't really happen, but he would not say about vetoing a ban. But the debate overall and how it went, CNN conducted an instant poll. 63% of people said they thought Harris won, 37%.
It's insane how blatantly CNN tried to fill the shoes of pre-Trump Fox News. Corporate media makes me sick. Nothing is below them. Yeah. I think that CNN is ass and has gotten more ass over the years. They really fucking hammered the anti-Trump line for 4 years in an effort to like farm as much clout as they possibly could, and then they turn around and became like light MAGA. They openly made that decision, by the way. It's not like a hidden secret decision. They like straight up said it. I mean, most corporate media is just so garbage, especially when it comes to foreign policy. Kamala repeated, I'm going to have the most lethal military line again in her closure statement. I didn't even fucking hear that. Oh, God, that's gross, dude. They hired a Republican strategist to run their coverage. Yeah. Do you like Jen Psaki? Jen Psaki bomb. What is the fallout of an extremely close victory for Harris? Do we have more political violence? No, I think post January 6th, like a lot of the deterrence that kicked in for people who genuinely thought that like they were above the law, or that the criminal justice system was like in favor of them. It was only to like lock up their enemies, poor people, homeless people, black people, brown people. Actually realize that like they can't get away with that. And that's why you see a lot less of that kind of movement. One other very important aspect of this is that the AstroTurf stuff stopped dead in his tracks because there was legal liability attached to it. I've talked about this quite a bit. Like TPUSA, you know, AEI, American Enterprise Institute, Heritage Foundation, like a lot of these think tanks used to pump money into like busing protesters over to like different races and stuff. And when the Trump campaign is too caught up in the Trump campaign is unfortunately or fortunately spending a shit ton of money on legal troubles. They don't have enough money to bus people to places. And also beyond that, the Republican establishment, like institutions, are not pumping money into busing people into certain places. So the likelihood that real political violence will happen is, you know, even less, especially paired up with like actual legal repercussions that they experience for the first time ever. I don't understand why she doesn't want a public option. Come on, Chad. Like, understand. She doesn't want a legal option because she does a public option because she doesn't care. Okay, that's it. These guys are like Joe Biden never talked about the public option after they packed up Bernie Sanders. He said, "Oh, I want a public option. It's so much better than fucking Medicare for all." There was never a single fucking moment where he uttered those words ever again after Bernie Sanders dropped out. Okay? Like, let's be real. You know, beyond the copium, like, I love watching Republicans cry because they're monstrous pieces of shit. But this doesn't mean that, like, the Democrats actually want to do good things by the American public. Okay? They don't. That's just the reality. It's just lesser evil voting. That's all you're going to get. You're not going to get anything. You're going to get, like, maybe if you're lucky, some tax credits. If you fit a certain demographic, okay? They are neoliberal through and through, okay? And they have the same exact corporate benefactors that the Republican Party has. The Republican Party is obviously worse, but this doesn't mean that the Democratic Party is good. Oh, think about it this way, okay? Think about it this way. There's no reason for the Democrats to not like take certain initiatives and like push forward certain things, even in the interest of winning the election. Okay? Make the Dems the new right-wing main party and the Republican Party? What do you mean? What? That it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. What has happened historically is that the more Democrats slant to the right, the more the right goes even further right. So it just becomes a fascist party and a center-right party. Like, think about it this way. Every single key policy position from the Democrats so far, even ones that I like the expansion of the child tax credit, are technically tax cuts. It's either tax cuts or deregulation. We need to build new housing units, 3 million new housing units. How do we do that? Deregulate housing. Okay? We're going to give tax cuts to startups, $50,000 in tax credits to startups. We're gonna do tax credits for people with children, child tax credit expansion. These are all technically neoliberal ideas. And on top of that, in terms of climate change, when we have like a disastrous situation ahead of us in terms of climate change, we're like, no, we're going to drill. We love drilling. Like, there is a hyper focus on drilling and fracking as though it's like something that every fucking voter cares about. And I don't think people care about it as much. And I do like the Green New Deal. I think the Green New Deal, if followed through on it, is an incredibly solid way to communicate to the public that this is a jobs program. It's not just about like fixing our climate policy. It's also about like restructuring the way we subsidize our energy industry. I think they recently just discovered that tax credits are functionally no different than a subsidy and are more politically palatable. I mean, it's not functionally different than a subsidy. It's entirely different than a subsidy. it's a tax cut. It's not a subsidy because you get it at the end of the year rather than a direct cash infusion. Isn't this out of touch sentiment something to do with the 100 million coffers she inherited? No. No. I think she would still be like repackaged Joe Biden. But overall, if you are a liberal and you are excited at, Donald Trump being defeated, then, this is your night. This is a victory lap opportunity for you.
Vote. I want to get some more results from our post-debate instant polls. Our political director, David Chalian, is back with us. David, what else are you learning?
Yeah, Anderson, this is a poll of debate watchers, not of the country overall or the electorate, obviously. But it's not that partisanly, in a partisan way, different than what we see broadly among registered voters. This is really interesting. Among the candidates' favorable and unfavorable ratings, take a look here at what we found. Before the debate, Harris's favorable rating was at 39%. After the debate, among these debate watchers, her favorability rating went up 6 points to 45%. Donald Trump actually ticked down 2 points among these debate watchers from 41% favorable to 39% favorable. That's about roughly the same. That's not a 2% tick down there. It's not huge, but I do.
You misunderstood me. There are pay-fors for the CTC expansion through raising corporate tax rate back up to 28%. Even if they didn't do that, I don't care. Even if it fed into the deficit, I don't give a shit. I like the expansion of the child tax credit. It's a very popular policy. It's a very good policy. Okay? Simply communicating that policy as a tax credit rather than a direct subsidy changes the mechanism in which you that you use this policy. Like, it changed the delivery mechanism. It just complicates it for no reason. Matt Bruning had a really good piece on this at the Triple P think tank that he has. But beyond that, I never was anti expanding the child tax credit. I think it's a great idea. It's a necessary policy. I'm simply saying, I don't like that the only time we are actually doing something that is helpful for the American population, we can only push it through the lens of tax cuts, which goes back to my anger in terms of the way that the Democratic Party presents certain things. It's just there's never any interest in advancing a different strategy, even though Trump's subsidies were incredibly popular. Do you see what I'm saying? The Trump bucks were very, very popular. People still bring that shit up. What about a cap on CTC so people like Jeff Bezos can't use it? Yeah, dude, Jeff Bezos is really making out like a bandit with the $6,000 that he's getting back in tax credits. What the fuck are you talking about? Do you hear yourself? No, I'm not saying more focus testing. I'm saying the exact opposite, okay? Universal programs are good. Universality is good. Universality makes it fair, okay? If you want to eliminate people who are really wealthy that are going to take advantage of these fucking universal programs, which is hilarious to think about because they're not, It's like saying, oh, public college means rich kids are going to go to school for free. It's like, no, they're not. They're going to go to private schools, okay? They don't go to public schools, and they will not go to public schools, and they'll go to private schools. But even if you want to, then tax them at the end of the year, okay? I mean, if you want, I'm never in favor of means testing. I don't think it's a smart idea. I think it actually is a way to make your progressive policy agenda less popular overall. But even if you were going to do that, you should probably do that in the back end and tax them afterwards, which is exactly what happened with the subsidies. As a matter of fact, the money that I got from the Trump bucks, I think it was the first payment I got. And then the second payment, I was over the limit, and I think I paid it in taxes. You pay it back in taxes if necessary, which there's no problem with.
Weeks ago, would you have predicted that 7 weeks later, that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump would be polling evenly. Donald Trump, a former president, and whatever you think about him, there is a presumption that goes with the fact that you were president, that you know the job and so on. So I do think that she filled that. She checked that box tonight. She looked like a president on that stage. There's not a lot of elasticity in this electorate, so I wouldn't expect huge movements here. But this isn't going to be a race that's won that way. It's going to be won incrementally. She took an incremental step forward.
So I'm a little bit surprised by those numbers, because this is as good as it's going to get for Kamala Harris, presumably. I mean, this was Donald Trump.
Okay, sorry. Thanks for educating me. Why did the mainstream media make a big deal about Jeff Bezos using child tax credits if it didn't matter? Oh, great question, actually, Chatter. It's because they're ginormous pieces of shit. That's it. There's literally no other reason. It's the exact same, because they don't want you to have good things. They don't want you to have a little bit ease of access to certain amenities that rich people take advantage of on a daily basis, because they fucking despise the working poor. Okay? And if you think I am even remotely exaggerating, I'm not. Okay? These people are monstrous pieces of shit at the upper echelon of society, and they are entirely backed by corporations, and they cannot stand for the working poor to get a leg up at any capacity. Because why? Because if you do get a leg up, you might want more things. If you do get a leg up, you might actually start thinking, wait a minute, the government is helping me. Because since the Ronald Reagan, Reaganomics, neoliberalism era in the United States of America, we've been bouldering towards economic collapse. If you look at the actual distribution of income in this country, if you look at the actual wealth disparity in this country, you'll recognize that we are worse than we were at during the Gilded Age. Okay, like the Roaring 20s. It's worse now than it was back then. Okay. There are omega wealthy people in this country, and then the rest are just like struggling to fucking make do. And these people, because they work for corporations, because they work for the interest of corporations, do not want you to even dream that the American government could ever fucking be helpful for you. Okay? And that's precisely why the Democratic Party doesn't usually do a lot in terms of helping people anyway. New York Times being fucking stupid garbage once again. Fierce exchange over country's future dominate debate. Harris and Trump spar over abortion, economy, and foreign policy. I mean, it's whatever. This is like the most wishy-washy, middle-of-the-ground bullshit, as expected from the New York Times. When you see Frank Luntz, the devil himself, is saying that Trump is unhinged and could not stay on topic, it says a lot. Yeah.
Dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. They're eating the dogs, the people that came in.
Jesus Christ. If it were up to you, who would have been your Republican and Democrat candidate? I don't give a fuck who the Republican candidate is. Are you trying to tell me that Anderson Cooper has ties to big business? His last name is Cooper, and that surely means his family historically was working class and made barrels? Yeah. Please do not Google what Anderson Cooper's actual last name is and what family he's a part of. You will not like the answer. Also, Anderson Cooper is going to be like interviewing Donny O'Sullivan on the misinformation documentary that I'm featured on, and I'm genuinely scared he's going to say some shit about me when he's interviewing Donny. I'm actually a little worried about the documentary that's coming out next Sunday. I thought it was strange he called Harris the worst vice president ever when Mike Pence literally didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution. Connor, you're so right. You're so right. Because I think in his mind, Mike Pence is dead to him. He's dead. Michael Pence Michael Pence from Pennsylvania is dead to him. So he doesn't want to even invoke his name. Donnie has your back, dude. Come on. No. I'm not worried about Donnie cooking me. I'm worried about like an editor doing that. I'm very MAGA. She definitely won tonight. Trump hasn't been the same since 2019. And the old guy's never coming back. He will still win, but this should be so fucking easy. And he makes it so difficult. That's so funny. The old guy's never coming back. He will still win. I don't think Trump's gonna win this chatter. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I mean I'm glad that you're at least like recognizing that Trump definitely lost. But I don't think he's gonna be winning this. I don't think he has this in the bag at all. If Trump loses, he's also going to lose in 2028. Yeah, I don't know what happens then. Compilation of Trump, Fox cooking Trump tonight. Wait, really?
Vice President Harris was clearly well prepared, practiced on the offensive much of the night. Former President Trump did take a lot of the bait that she threw out.
Make no mistake about it.
Dude, yeah, Brit Hume fucking blistered, dude. Brit, you've lost Brit Hume, sir. Imagine being that guy, just like seeing the difference, like experiencing the difference personally of like the Republican Party going from like competent country club Republicans to like the Trump Republican like populist project.
Trump had a bad night. He rose to the bait repeatedly when she baited him, something I'm sure his advisors had begged him not to do. And we heard so many of the old...
Dude, he was so locked in. You're right, the illegals will make Kamala win. Hell yeah, baby. That's right. It was so crazy. Kamala Harris would just like subtly bring some shit up in the midst of this conversation, and Trump would literally go back to it for no reason and burn like the first 30 seconds to the first 60 seconds every single time, addressing like some silly shit that nobody fucking gives a shit about, that he should know better never to talk about. I can't wait to come into the country illegally to get a transgender operation in the prisons. Hell yeah. You're missing Trump in the ABC spin room? No, I caught him saying he won by 92%.
Debate in his view, despite the fact that, of course, just a couple of months ago, it was the former president's opponent who dropped out of the presidential race altogether because of that debate. And there has...
Did Kamala not do the same thing with fracking? Yes, which is precisely the reason why I said in the midst of the debate, I said, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It doesn't mean shit to most people. It does not. And it's especially less meaningful when she's talking about fucking immigration, which is like something that the Republicans own, or even worse when it comes to like wars. You know, we're gonna be doing the wars. We're gonna be the wars. Even Trafalgar has a pretty big Harris approval tonight. Yeah, I mean, this is the, oh my god. This is literally like, this is the Asmongold chat poll, okay? Trafalgar with the Asmongold chat poll, basically. This is the real Asmongold chat poll, okay? I'm so happy my state got a shout out for executing babies based. Yeah, he said the wrong state. Are you in West Virginia? Because he said West Virginia instead of Virginia. And even then, it's not even real. The Virginia thing isn't real either. Here's a line for the Democrats in the future. Here's a freebie. Anytime somebody fucking says, oh, what about fucking, you know, abortions after birth, which is ridiculous. Nobody believes that. That's not happening regardless. So Trump can repeat that over and over again. That's bullshit. It's actually a massive L for him. Okay, that's one. But if he talks about late term abortions, third trimester abortions, that does happen. It's incredibly rare. Okay, but it does happen. Why does it happen is the real question. Okay, and the lie that Republicans tell is that it happens because people want to have fun abortions. Like they have fun, like just, you know, liberal women are hussies and they want to have sex and then they want to kill a baby because they want to like feel the thrill for the kill or some shit. Right. And that's ridiculous. Nobody's fucking carrying nobody's carrying a fetus in their body for fucking 7 months, 8 months, only to go and kill the fucking fetus. Okay. No, the only reason why third trimester abortions happen in this country, even though it is phenomenally rare, is because there are medical necessities. The carrier is about to die, or the baby is a stillbirth. Like there's an ectopic pregnancy type situation. It's fucking idiotic that these guys just like lie about this shit. So the counter to that should always be, of course, I'm not going to restrict abortion because abortion beyond the first and second trimester is only a medical necessity. So why the fuck would I stop a woman who in almost every single circumstance wanted to have this child, making a traumatic decision, like a really important life-saving decision that is going to be traumatic for them? Why would I add legal complications to that process? You can't just like get an abortion for fun. Nobody does this, okay? Because if you want to get an abortion for fun, it's much easier to do it in the first trimester, which is where 94% of abortions happen anyway. I hate this argument. It's very stupid. But like I said, I think one of the weakest points for Kamala Harris was that she did not even address any of the immigration psychopathy that Trump was representing. Isn't every abortion an incredibly difficult choice and a woman for a partner to discuss a life-changing decision? I hate how Republicans make it seem like people do it for fun. Yeah, I know. It is, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's especially ridiculous. No, and I fear that it common sense. What? Wrong. People in my state are killing kids as soon as they leave the P word of a woman. Liberals are denying this. Yeah, like who the fuck wants to be pregnant for? That's the question you should ask. Like, do you think people want to be pregnant for fucking 8 months, dumbass? Like, if they want to get an abortion, then they would get it in the first trimester or the second trimester if they didn't catch it in the first trimester. Ain't nobody's carrying a fucking pregnancy to almost term and then being like, yep, it's time. But of course, the conversation is comprised mostly of people who like don't understand this issue at all. And it's mostly men. Why did you get pregnant and abort the baby? This is so funny. I think you're asking this question like seriously. Like, I think you're asking this question sincerely. You're like, how do you get pregnant? Please explain to me. My father never did. Okay. When a man and a woman loves each other very much, okay, they sometimes do something in the bedroom. It's like me and your mom. Okay. When you hear The Office on Netflix for the 11th time that week, okay, and you just start hearing her yell a little bit in the room, that's me. I'm doing that to your mom. Okay. We're actually making a brother for you or a sister. Do you think Trump left tonight thinking he won? I feel like his ego is so big. Dude, he is unhinged. And he will keep posting these fucking dumbass Twitter polls. Newsmax snap poll. Who won the debate? 93% Trump. Who won the ABC News presidential debate? Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, 64% on C-SPAN. Yes, dude, these are Twitter polls. Of course, no one fucking... That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, this is some unhinged ass shit right here, dude. Anyway. Jon Stewart unpacks the presidential debate, now with 50% less old man. You know what? I'll watch this tomorrow. I'm tired. I love you guys. I'm sorry, no Wukong. I know a lot of people were probably expecting some Wukong, but we're nearing the 11th hour at this point, and I'm really fucking tired. Okay? Why does he call her Comrade Kamala when he said he's Putin's bestie? What? Oh, this was awesome. Eric Erickson losing his fucking mind on the timeline. You stupid motherfuckers just got Trump to repeat your lie about the pets. Congrats on sending the news stories tomorrow by lying so Trump picks it up and says stupid shit. And then right there, baby, right there, the absolute dumbass Christopher Rufo. Excuse me, the Federalist is citing a story about Haitians killing geese. Fire. This guy is such a fucking loser. Let me tell you something, okay? The old Republican Party used to like winning. If there was ever a dude like Chris Rufo that came in with some fuck shit like this and caused them to have this collapse in the 2022 midterm elections, okay? The Republican Party of the old age would have literally exiled him, okay? They would have put him on a fucking boat with no destination, okay? They would have been like, get the fuck out of here. The new Republican Party, on the other hand, is huffing copium. And they're like, oh, maybe this Christopher Rufo, well, I mean, he's a graceful loser.